Responding will be the Leader of the Opposition. Prime Minister, could you turn the mics off?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Prime Minister for his presentation today. It covered a great deal of ground and provided useful information as to how we as members of Parliament can expect to operate in the near future, and also the longer-term approach that the government wishes to take in grappling with this catastrophic tragedy that has befallen our nation. I want to also take this opportunity to express my heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of all who have perished in this terrible catastrophe, whether in the storm itself or in the aftermath. And to express my sympathies to the thousands of Jamaicans whose lives have been severely disrupted by the impact of this cataclysmic hurricane. Madam Speaker, in this House are many MPs who have been living among the people who are going through this suffering. And there's no doubt that it has been a traumatic and emotional experience for them. I hope that this afternoon you will allow them an opportunity to speak to what they've seen and what their thoughts and feelings are about it, because I think it's very important that they get that opportunity. Many of them have come from far to be here today, and I hope you will indulge them with that. Madam Speaker, we are fortunate, I think, that Kingston and St. Andrew was largely spared from the devastation of this hurricane. It has enabled the government to function. It has enabled Parliament to meet in normal conditions. And it shows the critical importance of being able to function as a government and as political representatives in the aftermath of an event such as this. One can't really imagine how we would be responding were the path of that hurricane to have been one which had visited that kind of destruction on the decision-making nerve center of the country. And it's something we have to bear in mind as we plan for the future. Madam Speaker, I look forward to hearing from the Minister of Finance in due course, hopefully soon, on the financial implications of what has happened, on the layered financing structure that is in place for dealing with natural disasters in Jamaica. We know that the agricultural sector has suffered an immense hit. Farmers have suffered huge losses. And of course, in that regard, it is not limited to just the West. I know that there are farmers in many parts of Jamaica which have suffered major hits, Minister. I'm sure you would agree. And so in how we design relief, we have to take that into account. It is, although the West is devastated and requires utmost care and attention and sympathy and resources and coordination, as you have said, there are many other parts of Jamaica that have also suffered significant damage and losses, and that has to be taken into account as well. I think everyone in this House must be extremely concerned about the impact of the hurricane on our students. Many schools have been very badly hit, and unfortunately, in those areas, that has also come with the failing of the electricity supply system and internet connectivity. So the option which existed in COVID, where one could rapidly try to transition to online learning and so on, is not readily available as a solution at this time. This means that we have to have a very creative and flexible approach to bringing students back into the education system to minimize learning loss, taking into account the need to do so safely, and also taking into account the psychological impact that this hurricane has had on them, and indeed their teachers, principals, and everyone else involved in the education system. And we look forward to hearing more of that in due course. Madam Speaker, right now, there are tens of thousands, one doesn't know the number.
House Leader, the member's time for speaking has expired. The standing orders were
I
not
don't have a
suspended.
30-page
The standing
speech.
orders, Leader, the standing orders were not suspended to allow for the completion. Could you please move? So move.
Madam Speaker, I ask that the standing orders be suspended to allow the Leader of the Opposition to complete his presentation.
Thank you, House Leader. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate that indulgence. I think that's a good start. I hope, as I've said, similar indulgences will be afforded my colleagues when their time comes to respond to the Prime Minister's statement. Where I was going, Madam Speaker, I was making the point that as we speak, tens of thousands, an untold number really, of our Jamaican people are living in conditions which are unbearable. Many have lost homes. Many have lost all their belongings. Many are in communities which are cut off. Many are struggling to find food. Water is a big problem because the water supply systems have been impacted by the lack of electricity, the turbidity, and other issues. So we must move rapidly to address that crisis. The provision of shelter and the longer-term solutions to the rebuilding of homes or the establishment of new solutions, that will require planning and careful thought. And I endorse the view that we cannot just do what we've done before, because we are in a new era. We're in an era where the Caribbean Sea is warming, and it has several negative effects. And one of those effects is that the storms that are emerging in the season are stronger, and they're also moving in ways which we weren't accustomed to before. So we can expect, as the Prime Minister has said, that we will have fairly frequent situations which we have to address, and we must be more resilient, and that requires serious thought as to how we rebuild and where we rebuild. But in the immediate term, you have little children, you have the elderly, you have pregnant mothers, you have persons with disabilities who are catching at a friend's house or a relative's house. Some of them are just under a makeshift piece of tarpaulin strung up over some structure or other, and they are at risk. The public health aspect of this, the Prime Minister made reference to it. I think it's a very serious issue. There is massive settlement of water in large parts of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, and no doubt other parishes. St. Anne, rivers broke their banks, underground water is behaving in unusual ways, and they see, when you pass through, you see numerous dead animals. often in those ponded waters. This presents a serious public health risk, and we have to address that very carefully. There is also a major public health risk from people with chronic diseases who need medications which need to be kept in cool conditions, refrigerated conditions, who don't have access to refrigerated conditions for medication. There's a huge risk that those persons will suffer negative health consequences from not being able to maintain their normal course of treatment for their conditions. We have to address that. So in the hub and spoke model which we're trying to build out, that needs to be taken into account fully so that there can be a delivery of health care to people in communities who are currently not getting it. And I'm sure others will speak to that in greater detail. Prime Minister, I have some concerns, and you've heard my recommendation, and I'm glad you're giving it thought, and I'm glad you're listening to what we're saying so carefully, and listening to others as well. That's a good thing. I too want to endorse, as I have been, the importance of us as leaders in this society being united in the response to this terrible calamity. Communities have supporters of both sides who have been impacted by this thing. We are Jamaicans, and we love each other, we love our nation, and we must approach dealing with this with mutual respect, care, and love. And I can assure you, Prime Minister, that we genuinely seek to be part of the solution to help Jamaica get through this. You can count on us cooperating and playing a constructive role to the extent we are afforded the opportunity to do so. And I hope that in the design of the overall mechanism for charting the course forward, for dealing with the rollout of the recovery and reconstruction, that the need for unity, the confidence that will come when people at home and abroad see a united mechanism, a mechanism built on that principle being the way in which it is done. I think that there's a lot to be said for that, and that's why I made the recommendation that I have. One of the concerns I have is currently the command structure is not well understood, if there is one. And I have had to be trying to identify points of entry into the disaster response mechanisms that have been established in order to provide information, vital information, that those who are handling the response need to know in order to respond and deal with these situations quickly. And we need to have clear lines of communication into the chain of command for the different aspects of what is manifesting itself now, so that we know who to approach and how to deal with that. It cannot be ad hoc. It cannot be totally informal. It must be transparent. It must be clear what it is. And there must be accountability for how the resources which are going to be deployed are deployed, so that the people providing those resources, especially persons who are doing it out of the kindness or generosity of their heart and spirit, feel that the sacrifice they are making on behalf of the Jamaican people are sacrifices that were well worth making, and they feel that their sacrifices have been treated with the respect that is due to it, by ensuring that it is used for the desired purpose and for no other purpose. And in that governance oversight mechanism isn't clear to me at the moment, and I think it's very important that it become clear and that it be consistent with the principle of inclusion and unity that you have spoken to in your address. Prime Minister, the impact on the economy will be profound. The tourism sector has taken a heavy hit. Many hotel assets have suffered damage in various degrees of severity. Some have been very badly hit, some have been moderately hit, some have got off relatively lightly, and we're glad for that. We know that agriculture is going to be, has been decimated, and this will impact the price of foods, and this will impact the availability of foods. And we need to address food security issues quickly so that our people do not suffer in this time. There will be displacement of employment. How we're going to respond to that, that remains to be seen. During COVID, funding was provided to hotels that were shut down to enable employment to continue for a period of time. I don't know whether that mechanism will be considered again, or whether there will be a massive public works program to absorb and labor and provide people with opportunities to earn something during the period of recovery. But these things are very important, and we look forward to hearing them and even participating in their development if we're allowed to do so. Madam Speaker, equity is critical at this time. People are on edge, people are angry, people are afraid, and if they feel that the way in which the relief effort is being deployed on the ground is not consistent with the way in which it is being articulated in Parliament and elsewhere, it will cause problems. I have some concerns. I am not going to raise them here today. I'm going to speak because they're very specific issues, but I'm going to talk to the persons who I think can address them. But the point I want to make, Prime Minister, is that you have given a commitment here today that nobody should suffer any disadvantage because of anything to do with political affiliation or indeed who they are and where they are. The issue is need and the response to the need. And everybody should be treated proportionately in accordance with the extent of their need. And I would ask every member of this House, every MP who's going to have responsibility for allocations that are being provided to help people, to approach it in that way and to ensure that it's based on need and it's not based on whether the person voted for this one or that one. That is not relevant now. What matters now is helping our people to get back on their feet, whether they're Labourite or PNP or no P at all. Prime Minister, I agree with the extension of the exemption from customs duty for an additional month to facilitate the tremendous goodwill towards Jamaica being actualized in tangible demonstrations of things coming into the country to help our people. 30 days would have been unduly short given the time it takes to get the logistics of those things worked through. An additional month is helpful, and I'm sure you will take that into account and under advisement and watch it as things go along. But I do agree with that, and in fact I had suggested it as well, so I'm glad we're seeing it. The National Week of the Cleanup Week. Like the idea. I think it will help us all pull together. One thing I would say in the design of it, already there are people in my constituency, for example, I'm sure I'm not the only one, who want to go and help in the areas where they're the most need. And I would love if in the National Cleanup Week, we're all going to get some allocation for that. But to the extent that our cleanup needs are not nearly at the scale of some other areas, if we could lend a hand in other communities or constituencies where there's a real need, I think that would be a very therapeutic and appropriate way of us all pitching in this time. I will. Them go alert. So, Prime Minister, I don't want to speak for long because I know others need to have an opportunity to speak today. And as I've said before, I hope they'll be afforded that opportunity. There's a lot of pain in the land, a lot of angst, and we as human beings who care about our constituents, who are elected to represent and want to make their lives better, faced with the suffering that is there on the ground, it is having a serious impact on everybody, including us. And I think being able to come here and speak to those issues, express our concerns, and so on, is a very important thing. And I now will yield to allow others to make their own contributions today. I thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Members, the floor is